In the canyon country of the Diné homeland, there are places where the rock itself has been written on. Figures carved and painted into the stone, some of them so old that no one remembers who made them. Most are simple enough: a deer, a hunter, a handprint. But some of them are strange. Figures with rays coming off their heads. Round shapes, like discs hanging in the sky. Beings that look like nothing that walks the earth. And people who come and stand before them almost always ask the same question: is this proof? Did the old ones see something up there? The Diné answer that question in a way most people do not expect, and their answer is gentler and wiser than the question. First, it helps to understand what these carvings are. They are called petroglyphs when they are pecked into the stone, and pictographs when they are painted onto it. Some have been there for hundreds of years, some for thousands. They were made by many hands, across more time than we can really hold in our minds. And most of what they show is the ordinary life of a people, the animals they hunted, the water they followed, the shapes of their own hands, pressed flat against the rock, as if to say, I was here. And many of them are older than the Diné themselves. When the Diné came into this country, long ago, some of these carvings were already here, already ancient, waiting in the rock. They had been made by the peoples who came before, the ones who built the cliff houses and then were gone. So the Diné did not only make these marks, they also inherited them. They would walk up to a wall covered in the work of strangers from 1,000 years before, and they had to decide what to make of it. And one of the shapes they found again and again was a simple spiral, wound tight at the center and opening outward. No one can say for certain what every spiral meant. Some believe they speak of journeys, of a people moving across the land. Some say they are water, or the turning of time itself. The honest answer is that we are reading someone else's language, with most of the words missing. But scattered among the deer and the handprints are the other ones, the figures that do not fit. A person with a great round head and lines coming off it like light. A circle hanging in the air above a row of watchers. A tall being with no face that we would know. And those are the ones the visitors always point to. And it is not one or two of these. Across the canyons and cliff walls of the Southwest there are thousands upon thousands of carvings made over thousands of years. And every so often, far apart, by people who could never have met or spoken, the same strange shapes appear again. A round head ringed with light. A figure that seems to come down from above. You can understand why someone standing in front of them begins to wonder. Why this shape and not some other? Why here and there again by hands that never knew one another? Now, the Diné have a way of speaking about why these marks were made. They say the old ones set down into the rock what they thought they had seen. That is the whole of it, not what was proven, not what was decided by a council of wise men, simply what a person or a few people believed they had seen with their own eyes. The carving was not an argument, it was a record. It was one human being saying, "This happened to me, and I do not want it to be lost." And here is where the Diné elders do something the modern world has nearly forgotten how to do. They refuse to claim too much. When you bring an elder to one of these strange figures and ask him, "Does this prove there were beings from the sky?" he will not tell you yes. But he will not tell you it is nonsense either. He will say something far more careful. He will say it could be that this was what they saw, and this is what they put down. Sit with how honest that is. He is not protecting a theory. He is not selling you a mystery. He is telling you exactly as much as can truly be known, and not one word more. The carving is not evidence of anything. It is a memory. And a memory is a fragile, precious thing, worth respecting on its own terms, without forcing it to become proof of something it was never meant to prove. And there is a kind of strength in that restraint that we have mostly lost. We live in a time that wants every mystery either proven or thrown away. Tell me it is real or tell me it is fake, but do not leave me standing in the middle, not knowing. The old ones were at peace in that middle place. They could hold a thing that was real to them and still admit they could not prove it to anyone else and feel no need to. That is not a weakness of the mind, it is a kind of maturity. A willingness to live honestly with what you do not know. And you can see, by contrast, how differently our own time treats these same stones. Someone finds a figure with a round head and lines around it, and within a day it is on a screen somewhere, with a confident voice declaring it absolute proof that visitors came from another star. No, maybe. No, we cannot be sure. Just a loud, certain answer, sold for attention. The old ones would have found that strange, not because they did not believe in the sky beings. They did. But because they understood that to take a humble carving, made by someone trying to be honest about a thing they barely understood, and turn it into a loud claim it was never making, is its own kind of disrespect. It uses the dead to win an argument they never agreed to have. There is something deeply human in all of this, and you do not have to live in the desert to feel it. When a person meets something they cannot explain, something that fits nothing they know, they reach for a way to keep it. We write it down, we tell it to our children. And long ago, with no paper and no cameras, the old ones did the same thing the only way they could. They took it to the rock. Think of what that means. Someone stood under that wide sky and saw a thing that amazed them or frightened them, a thing they had no words for. And instead of letting it slip away into forgetting, they spent hours, maybe days, pecking it into solid stone so that it would outlast them, so that someone someday would stand where they had stood and know that it had happened. We are that someone. We are who they were carving for. And remember how much work each of these took. This was not a quick sketch on paper. To peck a single figure into hard stone with another stone by hand could take the better part of a day. No one spent that kind of labor on a thing that did not matter to them. So whatever else these carvings are, they are a record of what a people decided was worth the work of remembering forever. The small and the passing never made it onto the rock. Only what mattered did. And that alone tells you something. Whatever these strange figures were, the ones who carved them counted them among the most important things they had ever seen. And this is exactly why, on this channel, we are careful with what we show you. Every image you see in these videos is an illustration, a drawing made to help you picture the story. None of it is a photograph of a real carving. None of it is offered to you as evidence of anything. We will never show you a faked rock or a doctored photo and call it proof, because that would be the opposite of everything this teaching is about. The old ones were honest about what their carvings were. They were memories, not proof. The least we can do in telling their story is to be just as honest about what our pictures are. So what is held in these stones, beyond the animals and the hunts? Some of it the Diné understood as the sky beings. The visitors who came, the lights that moved across the night, and above all the holy people who the old ones say appeared to certain people at certain times. And notice how those figures were carved, not as monsters, not as something to be feared and fought off. They were set down with reverence, the way you would record something sacred, because to the Diné, that is what they were, not aliens to be captured and studied, holy ones who came and were seen and were remembered in the most lasting way a people knew. And it was not only beings they recorded. The old ones set down the lights themselves, the strange glow that moved across the northern sky on a winter night, the great flash from the sun that they felt they could almost hear. To them, the whole sky was alive, and full of things worth keeping, and so they kept them the only way that would last. They gave the sky a place on the earth, pressed into the standing rock. In some places, the old ones did not carve the sky onto a wall at all, but painted it onto the ceiling of a low stone overhang. A whole scatter of stars in crescent shapes spread across the rock above your head, so that when you lay down beneath them, you were lying under a night sky that would never cloud over and never fade. Imagine being a child laid down in that shelter, while an elder pointed up and told you what each mark remembered. That was not decoration. It was a sky you could keep and return to and hand down. And because these carvings are memory and not merely decoration, the Diné have always treated the places that hold them with care. You do not climb on them. You do not scratch your own name beside them, the way some visitors sadly still do. You do not chip a piece off to carry home, because the moment you do, a memory that survived 1,000 years of wind and sun is gone, and no one can ever put it back. To stand before old rock art is to stand in front of something that is still, in a quiet way, alive. The least it asks of you is that you leave it as you found it, so that someone 1,000 years from now can stand there too. So the next time you see one of these old carvings, whether you stand before it in the canyon or only meet it in a picture, try to look at it the way the old ones meant it. You are not looking at an answer. You are looking at a moment of human wonder, held still in stone. Someone's astonishment, frozen and handed down across 1,000 years to reach your eyes. It does not tell you what they saw. It only tells you that they saw something and that it mattered enough to keep. It is not a conclusion. It is a question left in the rock for you. And there is something almost tender in that once you let yourself feel it. A person you will never know, who lived and died long before your people had a name, reached across all that time to leave you something. Not gold, not a monument with their name on it. Just a mark that said, "Look what I saw." They trusted that someone like you would come along one day and care enough to wonder, and here you are, wondering. That trust, kept alive across 1,000 years of wind and weather, is its own kind of miracle, whatever the figure in the rock turns out to be. If you ever get the chance to stand in one of these canyons yourself, do it quietly. There is a particular silence in those places, the kind that makes you lower your voice without deciding to. The wind moves through the rock. The figures sit where they have sat for longer than any nation now alive on the earth. And if you are still for long enough, you begin to feel the company of everyone who stood there before you, going back and back, each of them looking up at the same sky, each of them wondering. You are the newest one in a very long line of wonder. That, more than any single carving, is the thing worth carrying home. And maybe that is the real gift these carvings give us. They make you ask your own version of the question. If you could press only one thing into stone, one image, one truth, for someone 1,000 years from now to find long after your name is gone, what would it be? What did you see in your one life under this sky that you would not want the world to lose? That is what the old ones were really asking, with every figure they worked into the rock. You do not have to be Diné to feel the weight of that. Take what helps you here and make it stronger in your own life. And if this gave you a moment of wonder today, subscribe and walk the good path with us. There are more of these teachings still to tell. Thank you for listening and for listening with respect. And those are the things we are